Hello everyone, I'm Sunnivie Brydum, Digital Managing Editor of Free Speech TV. I am here at Netroots Nation with Zephyr Teachout, candidate for New York State Attorney General. Thank you for joining us.
I'm thrilled to be on.
Thank you, and Free Speech TV viewers may recognize Zephyr from one of our Elections 2018 Progressive Path Forward specials. So we're thrilled to welcome you back to the Free Speech TV space.
Yes.
So let's start with a little bit of a basic lesson. You are a professor, so tell us what an Attorney General does at the state level and why that's an important role to fill.
It's the chief law enforcement officer in the state, and that combines a blend of different roles. One of the most important roles is enforcing basic civil rights laws, basic environmental laws, basic laws against wage theft. When you think, who would enforce the laws against, say, abusive landlords in a systemic way, or high drug prices? That's the Attorney General. Now, it does change state to state. The New York State Attorney General happens to be an incredibly powerful job and important not just for New Yorkers, but nationwide, because the Attorney General has the obligation to ensure the integrity of the financial markets, so that affects everybody, and also the companies that are based in New York. So just to give one example, recent reports about the CEO of CBS and reports about systemic sexual harassment and retaliation. Who would investigate systemic sexual misconduct and retaliation? Well, if it's a one or two off story, it might be your local DA, if it's about a particular incident. But if it's about corporate culture, then that's the Attorney General. The job of Attorney General is especially important right now in New York because of what's happening at the federal level. We have a lawless administration, lawless in multiple ways. One is fundamentally a kleptocracy, some of which we know is illegal, other parts of which may be illegal. And because a lot of those of Trump's actions happen in New York and the businesses flow through New York, that's the New York State Attorney General. And I can't overstate the importance of having an Attorney General who's willing to be creative, tenacious, dogged, and follow the money. There have been a lot of lawsuits in recent years that you might have heard about in the last 2 years that have been really important lawsuits. Those are state attorneys general saying no to EPA rollbacks. You're not following the law. No to family separation. Those are critical. But the other part that I honestly think there hasn't been enough of is using the law as a sword as well. Going after just like when you have the mafia, you follow the money, do deep financial investigations. The New York State Attorney General can do that in a way nobody else can.
Right. And we did see some of that at the federal level with former attorneys general like Loretta Lynch. We certainly saw how the law can be used as a sword to protect those who are marginalized.
Absolutely, yeah. And there are other roles that I care a lot about. One is we're right now, 40 years in to a war on drugs mass incarceration era, and that has to end. And we tend to think, well, the activists will speak up about it, but it's actually incredibly important that law enforcement lead the charge and say, for instance, cash bail, where people before trial are basically caged depending on how much money they have. That isn't law. Like that isn't, it's done in the name of law, but it doesn't fit with the deep idea or promise of innocent until proven guilty. Right. And so as Attorney General, I will be leading the fight against cash bail for really addressing our systemic mass incarceration problem, truth-telling about the deep racist roots of our mass incarceration system, and also organizing with local DAs to find a path forward.
And so you spoke earlier about, your commitment to following the money. And one of the things that sets you apart in this race, where there are many candidates, is that you are the only one, I believe, who has pledged not to take corporate PAC money or any of that influence. Kind of tell me a little bit about the conflict of interest that, I guess, in that case, you're avoiding.
Yes. This is so important. I take no corporate PAC money. In New York State, horrifically, you're actually allowed to take direct corporate money.
Oh.
It's so much worse than at the federal level. And if you're wondering, why is New York so corrupt? Why do I keep hearing these stories? Part of the reason is that corporate money can be directly shifted to campaigns.
Right.
And a lot of that money is real estate money. You know where Donald Trump came out of? New York City real estate. There's a lot of New York City real estate in politics in New York. So when you asked about conflicts, I don't take corporate money, so there isn't even a question that when you hear about something illegal, you pursue it and you don't say, well, maybe it isn't so bad, because that's a big donor. And even the stink of corporate money affects people's trust in government. But I actually think it also affects, genuine decision making. 1/10 of every dollar spent in New York in 2016 was from New York City real estate. If you're dependent on New York City real estate, are you really going to go as hard as you can after abusive landlords? If you're dependent on Wall Street, are you going to use these incredible tools the New York Attorney General's office has to go after Wall Street? I think a common sense answer says it necessarily inhibits meaningful investigations. I mean, I think we got to focus on white collar crime and dealing with mass incarceration. Just flip the entire script, But that requires going against corporate money.
Absolutely, and you were speaking about the incredible power of the New York Attorney General's office. Certainly, we've seen in this in the Trump era, a federal administration that we almost know what terrible things to expect from them, and I think that has really increased the role and the influence of the states in being able to push back against that. And New York, as a pretty safely democratic state, really does have the potential to push back against that. Are there initiatives? Are there things the administration is doing now that, as if elected Attorney General, that you would really like to lead the charge to take on and push back against?
There is so much that can be done. I got to tell you, the mighty little state of Rhode Island, the Attorney General there just brought a path-breaking lawsuit about 3 weeks ago, directly suing fossil fuel companies for the financial harm they caused to the state because of climate change.
Wow.
I mean, this is a basic rule of law. If I hurt you, I have to put you back in the situation you were before. But we all know fossil fuel companies are making enormous profits.
Right.
Enormous profits. And not paying for the damage they caused. Right. So this is clearly violating a basic principle of law. The Rhode Island Attorney General brought this lawsuit. I want to bring a lawsuit like that in New York.
That would be amazing.
I want to take on big drug companies. We have opioid crisis and a crisis of just grotesquely high drug prices. And under the hood, there's fraud. It's not just one-offs.
Right.
And that's one way to think about the State Attorney General's office, is that there's a combination of really important, unsexy, but really important work representing people, hearing about people's complaints, suing, to make sure that the law is followed. But there's this additional role, which is basically a form of impact litigation. Is you're in a position where you can see the patterns, follow up on those patterns, and bring major lawsuits that change the entire market.
Absolutely. Well, I think we're running low on time, but if there's one singular message that you want voters in New York and around the country to know about your campaign, about what Attorney General Zephyr Teachout would do in office, what is that one nugget? Well, the short form is you ain't seen nothing yet. Because there's so many unused powers. We haven't even talked about antitrust. And as Attorney General, how I want to pick up these rusty tools that we just put down about 40 years ago to take on and break up big corporate monopolies. But you asked about one question. The one question is, I'm the only candidate who isn't taking corporate money because I want to bring law back into the hands of the people and out of the hands of corrupt politicians and out of the hands of big corporations. That's wonderful, and we wish you all the luck in the general. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It was great to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see you.